Now, the two things again is apply and fully describe a rotation. So when I said to you about describe a translation, what was I basically asking you to say? So if you see a shape that has been translated and they say, what transformation has happened? You would say it has been translated and then? Nope. What do you give next to the word translation?
Vector.
The vector, to say how it's moved, yeah? Right, so you've been doing that, I presume, in the thing now. Do you notice in the book it says 2 units down, 2 units left? I said we're moving beyond that. Right? But with rotation, we're pretty much as is. But again, we need to apply it and we need to describe it fully. Now, you'll notice on the sheet that it has been, examples of it being described fully are there. So it says here, show the image of the shape after A. So we say rotation, then we say the angle that we rotate about, then we say the direction, and then we say a point about which it rotates about. So, do you remember I said transformations is not just a change, is it? So the shape might not change. In fact, translations, rotations, reflections, those kind of things, the shape doesn't change at all. What is it that's actually changing? The position, all right? So depending on those things, the position of the shape will change. So these are things we need to pay attention to. So once we're told it's a rotation, that makes sense. Why do we need to know the direction? Aidan?
Because if it's clockwise for the first one,
Yeah.
like it'll be two different things when you rotate it. If you rotate it counterclockwise, it'll be facing one
Yeah, so if we go 90 degrees, if I go clockwise one way, so if I'm facing this way and I go clockwise 90 degrees, I'm going that way. If I do clockwise the other way, I'm going exactly the opposite direction. There's only one angle, well, maybe two. Jacques going to be picky and say there's infinite.
Yes.
There's probably two angles that we can rotate through that we don't need to say direction. What are they? 360.
180.
180. Good. And then all the ones, yeah. All right. But we won't worry. So if we rotate about 360, we won't actually see anything happening, will we? So we don't get that. We do, however, sometimes get asked to rotate 180 degrees. So we don't need to say clockwise or counterclockwise for 180 degrees. But anything other than that, we do need to say. It will end up in a different place. It will look different. So what do we do then? So how do we rotate this shape? We're going to do it rotation 90 degrees clockwise about the origin. So do you know what the origin is? 0, 0. So the origin is this. Now, if it wasn't the origin, it could be another point. But quite often at this stage, it's just the origin. How do we know what it looks like? Now, if I had some, normally I would at this stage, I could give you some tracing paper and we would trace it and then rotate it. But if we haven't, have you got any ideas what we could do?
Where all the axes intersect. That's how you.
The origin, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the origin. But what I'm asking is, how do I know where it's going to end up if I rotate it about that point?
If you flip your paper.
Yeah, so you can do that, can't you? So on your paper, what you can actually do is take your paper, all right, and put your finger or pen or whatever, and then rotate it 90 degrees in the clockwise direction and go, right, that's where it's going to end up. So imagine that the other one was where it is, and then rotate it, and that's where it's going to end up. Okay? So if I draw this after a rotation, so it's 90 degrees. So 90 degrees means it's going to end up in a different quadrant. It's either going to be this one or this one, but it's 90 degrees clockwise. So clockwise means we go that way, so it's going to end up in this quadrant. All right? Got it? So what we can do is whatever works for you, but I kind of look at it and go, right, that line there is on the axis. So if I rotate that 90 degrees, it's going to end up here. Yeah. And now I can really just kind of base everything else on that, because that line would be that. So then I go down one, cross one. Doesn't like it when I do that. Come on. Right. So draw yours in yourself on your sheet. That's what I gave you. Okay, so there's my new shape. So again, can you remind me, Cameron? This is called the what? Feel free to look at your notes from the previous lesson. No, it's not translation, it's a rotation. I've got two objects now. The first one is called the... No. This one's the object. The second object is actually called the image. So this is the image. Okay? Got that? Now, for those of you that might choose to move on to the harder questions, now, what happens if we consider coordinates? So what would be the coordinates of that point there? 2, 3. Okay, 2, 3. What are the coordinates of the image of that point? Well, that would be down here, right? So what are the coordinates there?
Negative 3, negative 3,
3, negative 2. Blimey, guys. I need to work on those coordinates. 3, negative 2, right? So you might think, also, if I go up to the harder ones where I start giving you coordinates instead of objects, and you've got to figure out where they would end up, there is a way of identifying, well, I know it's a rotation of 90 degrees. What do you think the coordinates would be of this point if I rotated the other direction? So without looking at it, so 2, 3, let's do a rotation of 90 degrees anti-clockwise. So bear in mind it goes 3, negative 2. So
negative
3, 2.
because this point would end up over here, right? And it would be negative 3, 2. So do you notice anything about what's happening with the coordinates? Yeah?
They're like switching back and forth.
They're switching and becoming negatives. But what do we know about, this is the both positive quadrant. And what happens if I go 180 degrees?
Both are negative.
They're both negative. Negative 3, negative 2, but they also swap position, right? So there is a pattern there that you can consider, right? Does the x ever stay the x? No. Right, so after our rotation, it's always going to be, this is wrong actually, isn't it? Yeah. It's in the wrong place, isn't it?
Negative 2, negative 3.
Yeah, because that should be there. So this would be negative 2, negative 3. So the x does stay the x, but negative if you go 180. But if you do 90 or either way, the x and the y will swap, won't they, because of the rotation. But that's how we do a rotation. Okay? So when we do it, we just apply it like that. When it's about a different point other than the origin, it becomes a little bit more tricky, right? And a good way is to have some tracing paper. I'll have a look. I might have some in the cupboard if you get that. But remember, when we describe it fully, you must have one point here actually 90 degrees and clockwise counts as the second thing, and the point about which you rotate is the third thing. So there are 3 things to write completely if you're going to describe it fully. And if you miss any of them out, you miss out on marks or credit in assessment or that kind of thing. So with translation, it was saying translation, and you've got to get both numbers right in the vector. So how many marks would you expect for a translation describing it fully?
3.
Sorry, 2. Just 2, yeah. I was expecting you to say 3. 2. Translation and the vector completely right. But with a rotation, there'd be 3 points. Saying rotation is the first one. Angle and direction have to both be there to get it. You can't just say 90 degrees, incomplete. And then about the point. Because obviously, if I rotate about a different point, what's going to happen? It's going to end up in a different place. Yeah, completely different place. Right. So I'll let you go on for the other 3, see what you come up with on your sheet, and have a go. So I'll put these in the video as well, won't they? For the other people to do at home. Yes, we are talking about you that's at home. Right here, guys. We're in. Let's do these. Let's just check. Having a little bit of a pause because I know the people at home, when they're watching the video, will need time to have done it. So make sure they click pause and do the work before they look at the answers. So, right, let's go through it then. So remember, describe it fully. We've got rotation, 90 degrees, clockwise, origin. Okay, so here's the origin. It's the same idea, isn't it? But so I would pick a line, whatever you want to do. So that one, 90 degrees would end up here. So that's the length of my line. So draw the shape from it. So we've got that. Is that what you get? You all agree? Next one, again, 90, rotation, 90 clockwise origin. We see the pattern here. So there's my line, rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. So this line comes out, this line comes down. Here's my thing, because it can be quite tricky, can't it? Yeah. And then, so that's it. That what you got? And then this one's a bit different because I haven't got a line on the axis. So what could you do?
The point.
So you can pick your points. Now what I might actually do is consider that this line is where the top of the head is. So that needs to be rotated round. So that comes almost, I'm going to draw an L shape. So now I'm going to rotate the L shape around. So this will be my guide. So you don't have to actually draw this. This could just be going on in your head. So then I can base it all on that. So that would be, come on, draw. So here, 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 down. All right. Is that what you get?
Nope.
No?
I did wrong twice. The L.
It's because
The
you
L's.
you
There's
did you
one.
only went 1 down and not 2 down.
Ah, there you go, yeah. So I've made a
Right the
mistake.
first time.
Well, tell me if
So
I
I
make
got
a
it
mistake.
right.
I thought it was
I
right.
got it right. Okay, now I have to.
Why? You know.
I should wait for Jean. I should wait for Jean to
Correct.
fix
You know I make mistakes intentionally,
Yeah, of course.
just to test you're paying attention. So cross 2, there you go, and down. So it should be down 2 and across. So yeah, it would have been just a bit further down, but we get the same idea. Right. So just to let's just have a quick look before we move on. What do you think is different about saying rotation of negative 90 clockwise?
The other way.
Yeah, so negative 90, if you ever see it like this, would mean actually it's not clockwise, it's counterclockwise or anti-clockwise, whatever you say. Okay. What would be the same thing as doing a negative 270 clockwise? Yeah, 90 degrees clockwise would be the same thing. All right, because 270 is going all the way around. All right, so that's the difference. Well, I didn't really go onto these ones because they use negative angles, whereas we at the moment would be saying counterclockwise or anti-clockwise instead of giving a negative answer. All right, so your next task is to move on to practice 2 on page 270, but you can go really have a look at page 271, question 2 to start with, really. All right. So page 271, start with question 2 onwards. All right. There's your task.